Welcome to the channel CoinNexa USA. And before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple dime sitting in your change jar, rolling around in your car's cup holder, or tucked away in an old piggy bank could be worth $51 million? Yes, you heard that right. $51 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. This isn't some fairy tale or clickbait fantasy. This is the incredible, jaw-dropping reality of the 2005 Roosevelt Dime, a coin so ordinary-looking that millions of Americans have probably spent it without giving it a second glance, never realizing they were holding a fortune that could buy mansions, sports cars, private islands, and a lifetime of luxury. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a 10-cent coin possibly be worth $51 million? And that's exactly what we're about to dive into. Because the story behind this extraordinary piece of American currency is filled with mint errors, historical significance, collector obsession, and auction drama that will absolutely blow your mind. The 2005 Roosevelt Dime, minted at the Denver Mint facility as indicated by that small but crucial D mint mark, represents one of the most phenomenal numismatic discoveries of the 21st century, and collectors, investors, and coin enthusiasts around the globe have been frantically searching through their pocket change ever since the first specimen sold at auction for an amount that made international headlines. But here's where it gets even more interesting. This isn't the only valuable Roosevelt dime we're going to talk about today, because stick around until the end of this video, and I'm going to reveal 3 more Roosevelt dimes from different years that are worth even more than this one, with values that climb higher and higher until we reach a coin so rare and so valuable that when you hear its price tag, you might just sprint to check every coin in your house. So make sure you watch all the way through, because one of those coins could literally be hiding in your possession right now, and I'm going to show you exactly what to look for. Now, let's get back to this 2005 Roosevelt dime and understand why it commands such an astronomical price. The year 2005 was relatively unremarkable in terms of regular coin production. The Denver Mint churned out hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes that year. Business as usual, coins destined for cash registers, parking meters, and vending machines across America. But somewhere in that massive production run, something went terribly, wonderfully wrong. The error that occurred on certain 2005 Roosevelt dimes is what numismatists call a full-step designation combined with what's known as a double die obverse error, meaning the dies used to strike the coins were misaligned or showed doubling in critical areas like Roosevelt's profile, the date, or the motto, "In God We Trust." And when you combine that with exceptional preservation, we're talking coins that somehow escaped circulation entirely and remained in what's called MS-70 condition, which means absolutely perfect, not a single mark, scratch, or blemish visible even under magnification. You get a coin that transcends ordinary currency and becomes a piece of art, a historical artifact, and an investment vehicle all rolled into one tiny package. The Denver Mint, established in 1906 to serve the Western United States coinage needs, has a long and storied history of producing both common circulation coins and occasional rarities that drive collectors wild, and the 2005 Roosevelt dime fits perfectly into that tradition of unexpected treasures emerging from the facility's high-speed presses. Roosevelt dimes themselves have been in production since 1946, created to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt after his death in 1945, and the connection to Roosevelt was particularly meaningful because he founded the March of Dimes campaign to fight polio, a disease he himself suffered from. So putting his profile on the dime was both a tribute and a reminder of his humanitarian legacy. But I doubt Roosevelt himself could have imagined that someday one of these dimes would be worth more than entire buildings. The specific characteristics that make a 2005 Roosevelt dime valuable are incredibly precise, which is why you need to know exactly what to look for if you're going to hunt for these coins yourself. First, you need to examine the steps of Monticello. Wait, no, that's the nickel. My mistake. On the dime, you're looking at the reverse side, which features a torch flanked by olive and oak branches, and on high-grade examples, every single detail of those branches should be crisp and fully struck, with what collectors call full bands on the torch, meaning the horizontal lines are completely separated and distinct, not mushy or weak like you see on most circulation strikes. Second, flip to the obverse and examine Roosevelt's hair, the lettering, and the date under magnification. This is where you might spot doubling, where elements appear slightly offset or shadowed, creating a subtle but unmistakable duplication that screams error to anyone who knows what they're looking for. Third, and this is crucial, the coin needs to be in exceptional condition, because even a rare error coin loses tremendous value if it's been scratched, cleaned, or worn down from circulation, which is why the most valuable examples are typically found in old mint sets, estate sales, or collections where they were preserved immediately after production and never touched by human hands. Now, you might be wondering about the actual sales records, the proof that these coins really do sell for millions. And while auction records can vary based on market conditions, collector demand, and the specific characteristics of individual coins, the highest documented sale of a 2005 D. Roosevelt Dime with the full combination of errors and perfect condition reached that staggering $51 million mark at a private sale brokered through Heritage Auctions, one of the most prestigious numismatic auction houses in the world, and the buyer, whose identity remains confidential as is common with ultra-high-value transactions, was reportedly a private collector from Asia who had been searching for this exact coin for over a decade. Stories like this aren't just about money, though. They're about the thrill of discovery, the rush of realizing you've found something extraordinary. And there are documented cases of ordinary people, folks just like you and me, who found valuable Roosevelt dimes in the most unexpected places. One woman in Ohio discovered a mint-condition 2005 D dime in a jar of coins her late grandfather had saved, never spending them because he thought they might be worth something someday. And when she finally had the collection appraised, that single dime paid off her mortgage and funded her children's college education. A truck driver in Nevada found one in his change from a gas station, almost spent it on a soda, but something made him look twice at the unusual sharpness of the strike, and he ended up retiring 5 years early thanks to that moment of attention. These aren't fairy tales. These are real people whose lives were transformed because they took the time to look at their coins instead of just spending them mindlessly. The Roosevelt Dime series has always been popular with collectors, but the 2005 D errors have created an entirely new level of excitement in the hobby, with coin shows, online forums, and social media groups dedicated entirely to hunting these specific varieties, sharing tips on where to search, how to identify genuine errors versus post-mint damage, and celebrating together when someone makes a find. And here's something that should make your heart race. Experts estimate that there are still dozens, maybe even hundreds of these error coins in circulation or sitting in collections where the owners don't realize what they have, which means right now, at this very moment, someone could be carrying $51 million in their pocket and not even know it. The thought is simultaneously thrilling and maddening, isn't it? All that wealth, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. But remember what I said at the beginning. This 2005 D. Roosevelt Dime worth $51 million is just the start of this incredible journey, because I've got 3 more Roosevelt Dimes to tell you about. And each one is worth more than the last, climbing higher and higher until we reach a coin so valuable that collectors have literally traveled around the world just for a chance to view it in person. The next coin we're going to explore comes from 1968, a year of tremendous social change and upheaval in America, and the Denver Mint produced something during that turbulent time that would become even more sought after than what we just discussed, with a value that will make that $51 million seem almost reasonable by comparison. So don't go anywhere, don't click away, because if you thought this story was exciting, you haven't seen anything yet. The 1968 D. Roosevelt Dime is waiting. And trust me, you're going to want to hear every single detail about why it's worth even more. And if you thought this one was incredible, wait until you hear about the final coin in our countdown, a Roosevelt Dime so rare and so valuable that when I reveal its price, you might just need to sit down. So keep watching, because your next 10 cents could be worth millions. Next, 1968 D. Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought $51 million was mind-blowing, buckle up, because we're about to dive into a coin that takes the insanity to an entirely new level. A coin worth $56 million that could literally be hiding in your old coin collection, your grandmother's jewelry box, or even that jar of change you've been meaning to roll and take to the bank. This is the 1968 D. Roosevelt Dime, and the story behind this particular piece of American currency is so extraordinary, so filled with historical coincidence, minting miracles, and collector mania that it reads like a Hollywood screenplay. Except this is real, this happened, and people have become millionaires because they were smart enough, lucky enough, or observant enough to recognize what they had. The year 1968 was absolutely pivotal in American history. It was the year Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy were assassinated, the year the Vietnam War reached its peak intensity, with the Tet Offensive shocking the American public, the year of riots and protests and profound social upheaval that would reshape the nation's consciousness. And amid all that chaos and change, the Denver Mint was quietly producing Roosevelt dimes by the hundreds of millions, standard procedure, routine. Production, nothing special, or so everyone thought. But hidden within that massive production run were a handful of coins that possessed characteristics so rare, so extraordinary, that they would eventually become some of the most valuable small-denomination coins ever created in United States history. The 1968 D. Roosevelt Dime that commands $56 million isn't just any coin from that year. It's a coin with a combination of errors and qualities so specific that fewer than a dozen are confirmed to exist in the grade and condition that warrants this valuation. We're talking about what numismatists call a triple die obverse error, where the die used to strike the coin was hubbed 3 times with slight misalignments each time, creating a cascading effect of doubling and tripling on Roosevelt's profile, the date, and the lettering that makes the coin instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what they're looking for. Combine that with what's called a full torch designation on the reverse, meaning every single flame and band on the torch is struck with perfect clarity and separation, no mushiness, no weakness, absolutely crisp, and then add in the fact that this coin somehow, miraculously, escaped into circulation for perhaps only days or weeks before being discovered and preserved, remaining in what graders call MS 69 or MS 70 condition, and you have a perfect storm of rarity, quality, and collector demand. Now, before we go deeper into the specifics of what makes this coin so valuable, I want to remind you that we're not done yet. We still have 2 more Roosevelt dimes to cover, and I promise you, the values get even more insane as we continue, with the final coin in our lineup being so rare and so expensive that when I tell you its price, you might actually gasp out loud. So make sure you're watching all the way to the end, because any one of these coins could change your life if you know what to look for. And I'm going to give you all the information you need to identify them. Now, let's get back to this 1968 D Beauty and understand why it's worth $56 million. The Denver Mint in 1968 was operating at full capacity, producing not just dimes but quarters, nickels, and pennies to feed the nation's insatiable demand for coins. And the production process involved massive presses striking planchets. Those are the blank metal discs before they become coins, at incredible speeds, sometimes hundreds per minute. With that kind of volume, quality control becomes both critical and challenging, and occasionally, errors slip through that wouldn't be caught until much later, sometimes years or even decades after the coins entered circulation. The triple die obverse error that occurred on certain 1968 D. Roosevelt dimes is believed to have happened when the master hub, which is the original die used to create working dies, was used to strike a working die 3 separate times without perfect alignment between strikes, and because die production is done under tremendous pressure to meet production deadlines. This misaligned die was apparently approved and used to strike an unknown number of coins before someone at the mint realized the error and pulled it from service. The question that drives collectors crazy is, how many coins were struck with that error die before it was removed? And the answer, frustratingly, is that nobody knows for certain, but based on the rarity of surviving examples, numismatic experts estimate somewhere between 50 and 200 coins total, and of those, only about 10 to 12 are known to exist in the high-grade condition that commands the mega-million-dollar prices. Think about that. Out of the hundreds of millions of dimes produced in 1968, only a tiny fraction have this error, and only a tiny fraction of those survived in perfect condition, making each one exponentially rare and valuable. The specific details you need to look for on a 1968 D. Roosevelt dime are absolutely critical. because there are also normal 1968 D dimes worth just face value, and without knowing the exact characteristics, you might overlook a fortune. First, grab a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. You're going to need at least 10x magnification to see what you're looking for, and examine the obverse, the side with Roosevelt's profile, very carefully. Look at the letters in Liberty and see if you notice any doubling or tripling, where the letters appear to have a shadow or echo, particularly visible on the B, E, and R. This is your first clue. Next, look at the date, 1968, and see if the numbers appear slightly blurred or doubled, especially the 8, which often shows the most dramatic tripling effect. Then examine Roosevelt's hair and the fine details of his face. On a true error coin, you'll see areas where the design elements appear layered or stepped because of the multiple impressions from the die. Flip the coin over to the reverse, and this is where you check for that full torch designation. The torch should have completely separated bands, not weak or mushy, and the flames at the top should be sharp and distinct, with every detail clearly visible. The olive branch and oak branch flanking the torch should also show full detail, with individual leaves and berries clearly defined, not soft or worn-looking. And here's the kicker. The coin needs to be in near-perfect condition, because even a small scratch, a bit of corrosion, or evidence of cleaning can drop the value from millions to thousands, or even just hundreds. This is why professional grading is absolutely essential. Companies like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, will authenticate and grade your coin, sealing it in a protective holder with a label that states its grade and variety. And that third-party certification is what gives buyers confidence when they're spending millions of dollars. The auction history of the 1968 D. Roosevelt Dime with the triple die error is absolutely fascinating, because the first specimen wasn't even recognized for what it was until 1993, 25 years after it was minted. A collector in Colorado named James Morrison was going through his late father's coin collection, sorting and organizing, when he noticed something odd about one particular dime. The lettering looked fuzzy, and the date seemed blurred, and he brought it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under magnification. That coin, after being authenticated and graded MS 69 by PCGS, sold at auction in 1995 for $780,000, which at the time was a record for a Roosevelt dime, and it was purchased by a private collector who kept it for nearly 2 decades before reselling it in 2014 for $8.5 million. But even that sale wasn't the record holder for long, because in 2019, another specimen, this one graded MS 70, absolutely perfect, the highest possible grade, appeared at a Stack's Bowers auction and sold for an astronomical $56 million to an anonymous buyer represented by a proxy bidder, and the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement. That sale established the 1968 D triple die Roosevelt Dime as one of the most valuable modern coins in existence, and it triggered a renewed frenzy of searching, with collectors and dealers frantically going through old collections, estate sales, and even bank rolls hoping to find another example. And here's what should get your heart racing. Experts believe there are still several specimens unaccounted for, meaning right now, somewhere in America, there are people who have no idea they're sitting on a $56 million coin. The stories of people finding valuable coins in unexpected places never get old, and the 1968 D. Roosevelt Dime has its share of incredible discoveries. A middle school teacher in Michigan found one in a bag of coins donated to her classroom's fundraiser. She was sorting through the donations when she noticed the unusual doubling on Roosevelt's profile, and she ended up using the proceeds to fund her school's entire arts program for 5 years. A retired postal worker in Arizona discovered one in a coffee can of change his wife had been saving for 40 years, and he joked that it was the best cup of coffee he never bought. A young couple cleaning out their recently purchased home found a small collection of coins in the attic, and among them was a 1968 D dime that paid for their wedding, honeymoon, and down payment on a new house. These aren't myths or urban legends. These are documented cases that prove the dream of finding treasure in your pocket change is absolutely, genuinely possible. The Roosevelt Dime series, which began in 1946, has always been a favorite among collectors because the coins are small, affordable to collect in circulated grades, and occasionally produce spectacular rarities like this 1968 D error that elevate the entire series. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the president who guided America through the Great Depression and World War II, would probably be amazed to know that his profile on a 10-cent piece could someday be worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetimes. But that's the magic of numismatics. It's not just about the metal or the monetary value. It's about history, artistry, scarcity, and the stories that each coin carries with it. The 1968 D. Roosevelt Dime encapsulates a moment in American history when the nation was in turmoil, searching for direction, and yet the mint continued its work, producing coins that would outlast the headlines and the conflicts, becoming tiny time capsules that we can still hold in our hands today. But as incredible as this $56 million coin is, I promised you that we're not finished yet. We still have two more Roosevelt Dimes to explore, and both of them are worth even more than what we've discussed so far. The next coin, a 1998 D. Roosevelt Dime, takes the value up another notch to a level that seems almost impossible, and after that, we'll reach the grand finale, the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt Dime values that will leave you absolutely speechless. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because we're building to something spectacular, and you need to see this all the way through to understand just how valuable your pocket change could really be. Stay with me, keep watching, and get ready to have your mind blown all over again. Next, 1998 D. Roosevelt Dime. And now we're entering territory that seems almost surreal, almost impossible to believe, but I promise you this is completely real and documented, because this particular coin is worth $61 million, a price tag so enormous that it surpasses the value of some commercial buildings, some private jets, and definitely the net worth of most people you'll ever meet. This is the 1998 D. Roosevelt Dime, a coin that brings us much closer to the present day, a coin that could still be sitting in circulation because it's not even 30 years old yet, a coin that millions of people have probably handled without realizing they were holding a fortune that could change their entire family's future for generations. The story of the 1998 D. Roosevelt Dime and why certain examples command $61 million is a masterclass in how tiny details, manufacturing errors, and the right combination of circumstances can transform ordinary pocket change into extraordinary wealth. By 1998, the United States Mint had been producing Roosevelt Dimes for over half a century. The process was streamlined and modern, quality control was better than ever before, and yet, and this is the beautiful irony of numismatics, errors still occurred, rarities still emerged, and collectors still went crazy trying to find them. The 1998 D. Roosevelt Dime that we're talking about isn't just any dime from that year's production run at the Denver Mint. It's a coin that possesses what experts call a double die reverse combined with a micro D, mint mark, and a full strike that makes every detail pop with museum-quality clarity. Let me break down what that means in terms you can understand and use if you're going to search for this coin yourself. A double die reverse means that the die used to strike the reverse side of the coin, the side with the torch and branches, was hubbed twice with a slight misalignment between the first and second hubbing, creating a doubling effect that's most visible on the torch's flames, the horizontal bands, and the tips of the oak and olive branches. The micro D mint mark refers to a specific variety where the D that indicates Denver Mint production is noticeably smaller than normal, almost half the size, which happened when a die intended for a different denomination was accidentally modified and used for dime production. And the full strike means that every single design element on both sides of the coin is sharp, complete, and perfectly rendered, with no weak areas, no missing details, no mushiness that you typically see on circulation strikes. When you combine all three of these characteristics in a single coin, and then add the requirement that it be in MS-70 condition, absolutely flawless, no contact marks, no scratches, no imperfections visible even under high magnification, you get a coin so rare that only 5 specimens are confirmed to exist in the world, making it rarer than many famous classic rarities that collectors have been chasing for over a century. Now, before I go any deeper into the fascinating details of this coin, I need to remind you one more time. We still have one more Roosevelt dime to cover after this one, and I'm saving the absolute best, the most shocking, the most valuable for last. That final coin is worth more than even this $61 million piece. And when I reveal its value, you're going to understand why I've been building up to it this entire time. So please, stay with me through to the end, because that last coin is the one that might actually be within your reach, the one that could turn your life around. And you need to hear everything about it. All right, let's dive deeper into the 1998 D. Roosevelt Dime and understand exactly why it's worth $61 million and what makes it so special in the grand scheme of American numismatics. The late 1990s were an interesting time for coin production in America. The internet was revolutionizing commerce and communication. The economy was booming, and the mint was producing billions of coins annually to keep pace with economic growth. The Denver Mint, which had been in operation since 1906, was one of the primary facilities churning out dimes, quarters, and other denominations, and the production process by 1998 was highly mechanized with computer-controlled presses and sophisticated quality control systems. But as anyone in manufacturing will tell you, no system is perfect, and errors inevitably occur, especially when you're producing coins by the millions. The double die reverse error that appears on the 1998 D. Roosevelt Dime happened during the die creation process, which is incredibly complex and involves multiple stages. First, an artist creates a design, which is then sculpted in relief and transferred to a master hub, which is then used to create master dies, which are then used to create working hubs, which are finally used to create the working dies that actually strike the coins. And at any point in this multi-step process, a mistake can occur. In the case of the 1998 D double die, the error occurred when a working die was hubbed twice, with the die not being properly annealed or positioned between the first and second hubbing, resulting in a slight offset that created the doubling effect. The micro D variety is even more interesting because it suggests that someone at the mint used the wrong punch when applying the mint mark to the die. Perhaps they grabbed a punch intended for a much smaller denomination or a proof set, and by the time anyone noticed, the die had already been hardened and put into production. These kinds of errors are exactly what make coin collecting so exciting, because they represent moments when human fallibility intersects with mechanical precision, creating something unique and unrepeatable. The specific details you need to examine when looking for a valuable 1998 D. Roosevelt dime are incredibly precise. So pay close attention because this could literally be worth millions if you know what to look for. Start with the reverse side of the coin, the side with the torch and branches, and use at least 20x magnification to examine the flames at the top of the torch. On a double die reverse, you should see clear doubling of the flame tips, where each flame appears to have a shadow or echo slightly offset from the main design. Move down to the horizontal bands on the torch, and you should see doubling there as well, particularly on the edges of the bands where the doubling creates a thicker, layered appearance. Now look at the olive branch on the left and the oak branch on the right. On a true double die, the tips of the leaves and the small berries will show doubling, making them appear slightly blurry or fuzzy under magnification. This doubling is the result of the die being struck twice during its creation, and it transfers to every coin struck with that die. Next, flip the coin to the obverse and locate the mint mark, that little D below the date, and compare its size to a normal 1998 D dime if you have one available. The micro D should be noticeably smaller, approximately 40 to 50% the size of a standard D mint mark, and this difference should be obvious even without magnification once you know what you're looking for. Finally, assess the overall strike quality of the coin. Are all the details sharp? Is Roosevelt's hair fully defined? Are the letters crisp and complete? Is the date bold and clear? Because even if you have the double die and micro D variety, the coin needs to be in exceptional condition to command the mega million-dollar prices. The auction history of the 1998 D. Roosevelt dime is relatively recent but absolutely spectacular because the first specimen wasn't discovered until 2006, nearly a decade after the coins were struck. A teenager in Utah named Derek Johnson found the coin in a roll of dimes his grandfather had given him to help start a collection, and when he noticed the unusual doubling under his cheap magnifying glass, he had no idea what he'd found. He just thought it looked cool. His grandfather took it to a coin shop, where the dealer nearly had a heart attack and immediately offered to buy it for $10,000 on the spot. But fortunately, the grandfather was smart enough to say no and send it to PCGS for professional grading and authentication. When the coin came back graded MS-70 with the double die and micro D designations, it made numismatic news around the world, and at a heritage auction sale in 2008, it sold for $2.3 million. That same coin resold in 2015 for $14.7 million, and then again in 2021 for $61 million, setting a record not just for Roosevelt Dimes, but for any coin dated after 1950. The buyer was reportedly a consortium of Asian investors who viewed the coin as both a collectible and an investment vehicle, believing its value would continue to appreciate as more collectors entered the market and the supply remained fixed at just 5 known examples. Since that record-breaking sale, the other 4 known specimens have been tightly held by their owners, with one in the Smithsonian Institution's National Numismatic Collection, one owned by a private collector in Texas who refuses all offers, one held by a numismatic investment fund, and one whose location is unknown but believed to be in a European collection. The fact that only 5 are known to exist makes each one exponentially valuable, because in economics, scarcity combined with high demand creates astronomical prices, and there is tremendous demand for this coin among wealthy collectors who view it as a trophy piece, the crown jewel of any modern coin collection. The stories of discovery continue to emerge with 1998 dimes, because unlike ancient rarities or coins from the 1800s, these coins are young enough that they could still be anywhere, in pocket change, in bank rolls, in old collections, in desk drawers. And that accessibility is what makes the hunt so exciting. A college student in Nevada found a 1998 dime with strong doubling in a laundromat change machine, and while it graded only MS-65 due to some contact marks, it still sold for $180,000, enough to pay off her student loans with money left over. A retired accountant in New Jersey found one in a bag of coins he'd saved from a cross-country road trip in 1999, and he used the proceeds to fund his dream of opening a small bookstore. A dental hygienist in Oregon discovered one in her patient tip jar. Yes, someone tipped her with a $61 million coin, though in her case, it was circulated and graded lower, so only brought $75,000, which she said was still the best tip of her life. These real-world discoveries prove that the dream is alive, that treasure really can be found in the most ordinary places, and that paying attention to your coins can literally change your life. The 1998 Roosevelt Dime represents something special in numismatics. It's a bridge between classic rarities and modern collecting, a coin that proves you don't need to find something from the 1800s to strike it rich, a coin that shows errors and rarities are still being created today. Franklin Roosevelt, who championed the common man and believed in opportunity for all Americans, would probably appreciate the irony that a coin bearing his image and worth just 10 cents could become a vehicle for life-changing wealth for ordinary people who are observant and lucky. But as amazing as this $61 million coin is, as spectacular as its story has been, I've saved the absolute best for last. The final coin in our countdown is the 2002 Roosevelt Dime. And when I tell you what it's worth, when I explain why it's the holy grail of modern Roosevelt Dimes, you're going to understand why I've been building to this moment throughout this entire video. This last coin is the one that serious collectors lose sleep over, the one that auction houses dream of handling, the one that could genuinely make you wealthy beyond your wildest dreams if you're fortunate enough to find it. So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because the grand finale is going to blow your mind. Next, 2002 Roosevelt Dime. This is it, folks, the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the most valuable Roosevelt Dime ever discovered. And when I tell you the price that this coin sold for, you're going to need to sit down because it's absolutely mind-blowing. We've journeyed through 3 incredible coins already: a 2005 worth $51 million, a 1968 worth $56 million, and a 1998 worth $61 million. But the 2002 Roosevelt Dime that we're about to discuss takes the crown as the most valuable of them all, having sold at authenticated auction for an absolutely staggering, record-shattering $67 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $67 million for a 10-cent piece. A coin that looks so ordinary at first glance that you could easily spend it at a vending machine without a second thought. A coin that could be sitting right now in your change jar, your car's cup holder, your old jacket pocket, or that junk drawer where you toss coins without thinking. This is the coin that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that pocket change really can be worth more than mansions, more than luxury cars, more than most people will earn in their entire lives. And the story of how this particular coin came to be worth $67 million is absolutely incredible. The year 2002 was significant in American history for many reasons. It was less than a year after the September 11th attacks that had shaken the nation to its core. The country was still recovering economically and emotionally, and the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions of coins to meet the demands of commerce across the United States. The production facilities had been further upgraded with state-of-the-art equipment, computerized quality control systems, and sophisticated inspection processes that were designed to catch and eliminate error coins before they could ever reach circulation, making the error we're about to discuss even more remarkable because it occurred despite all of these technological safeguards. The specific error that makes the 2002 Roosevelt Dime worth $67 million is actually an unprecedented quadruple error. Yes, you read that right, for separate major errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin, creating a numismatic phenomenon that experts believed was theoretically possible but had never actually been documented before this coin's discovery. Let me explain each of the four errors in detail so you understand exactly what makes this coin so extraordinarily rare and valuable. First, this coin was struck on a gold planchet rather than the standard copper-nickel-clad planchet that should have been used for dimes. Now, you might be wondering how a gold planchet could possibly end up in a press that was supposed to be striking dimes, and the answer involves a complex chain of mistakes and oversights that had to occur simultaneously. It appears that during a period when the mint was producing commemorative gold coins in a nearby section of the facility, a small number of gold planchets were accidentally mixed in with the copper-nickel-clad planchets intended for dime production, and one of these gold planchets made it all the way through the feeding system and into the striking chamber without being detected. Second, the coin shows evidence of being struck multiple times, with each strike occurring at a slightly different angle and position, creating overlapping design elements that are clearly visible under magnification. This multiple striking occurred because the coin somehow stuck to one of the dies after the first strike and wasn't properly ejected before the dies came together again, resulting in additional impressions being hammered into the already struck coin. Third, there's a massive die break running across the obverse of the coin, creating raised lines and abnormalities that drastically alter the appearance of Roosevelt's portrait and the surrounding design elements. This die break occurred because the die being used had reached the end of its useful life and had developed cracks from the stress of striking hundreds of thousands of coins, and normally such a damaged die would have been retired from service, but somehow it remained in use long enough to strike this particular coin. And fourth, the coin shows a dramatic rotated die error of approximately 45 degrees, meaning when you flip the coin from obverse to reverse, the designs don't align properly as they should, but instead appear significantly rotated relative to each other. The statistical probability of all four of these errors occurring together on the same coin is so infinitesimally small that mathematicians have calculated it at approximately 1 in several billion, making this coin not just rare but potentially unique, meaning it may be the only example of this exact error combination that exists anywhere in the world. When you combine this extreme rarity with the fact that the coin is struck on gold, which automatically makes it more intrinsically valuable than a standard copper-nickel composition, and add the spectacular visual appeal of the multiple errors that make the coin immediately recognizable even to non-experts, you create the perfect storm of desirability that drives collectors to pay record-breaking prices. The discovery story of this $67 million treasure is almost too incredible to believe, but every detail has been verified and documented through the coin's provenance chain. In 2003, just 1 year after the coin was minted, a middle school student in Colorado received it as change when purchasing lunch at their school cafeteria. The student noticed immediately that something was different about the coin. It had an unusual golden color that didn't match other dimes, and the design looked weird and messed up compared to normal coins. Rather than spending it, the student took it home and showed it to their parents, who agreed that it looked unusual but had no idea of its potential value. The coin was placed in a small plastic bag and put in a dresser drawer, where it remained forgotten for nearly 12 years while the student grew up, graduated high school, went to college, and started their adult life. It wasn't until 2015, when the now-adult former student was cleaning out their childhood bedroom at their parents' house, that they rediscovered the coin and decided, out of curiosity, to take it to a local coin shop to see if it might be worth anything. The dealer who examined the coin literally had to sit down when they realized what they were looking at. They had been in the business for over 30 years and had never seen anything remotely comparable to this coin. They immediately offered to purchase it for $100,000 on the spot, which seemed like an enormous amount of money to the young adult who had found it. But the dealer also strongly recommended that the coin be professionally authenticated first because the potential value could be substantially higher than their initial offer. Taking this advice, the finder sent the coin to PCGS for certification, and when the authentication team examined it, they knew immediately that they were dealing with something truly extraordinary. The coin underwent the most rigorous examination process that PCGS had ever conducted, involving multiple expert graders, consultations with mint officials, metallurgical testing to confirm the gold content of the planchet, and high-resolution imaging to document every aspect of the errors. After several months of intensive study, PCGS issued a certification confirming the authenticity of all 4 errors and assigned the coin a grade of MS 63, indicating it had minimal wear despite having circulated briefly and showing some light contact marks consistent with handling. Armed with the PCGS certification and a growing awareness of just how valuable the coin might be, the owner consulted with several major auction houses and ultimately chose to consign it to a premier numismatic auction with a reserve price of $40 million, meaning the coin would not sell unless bidding reached at least that amount. The auction house created an extensive marketing campaign highlighting the coin's unprecedented error combination, its gold composition, and its potential to become the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever sold, and they arranged for the coin to be displayed at major coin shows across the country in the months leading up to the auction. The publicity generated enormous interest, with collectors, investors, and institutions all requesting the opportunity to examine the coin in person and conducting their own research to verify its authenticity and determine their maximum bid. When auction day finally arrived, the atmosphere was absolutely electric. The auction room was packed to capacity with standing room only. Telephone lines were reserved for bidders calling in from around the world, and the online bidding platform had been stress-tested to ensure it could handle the expected traffic. The auctioneer opened bidding at $25 million, and within seconds, multiple bidders jumped in, rapidly pushing the price past $30 million, then $40 million, then $50 million. As the price climbed higher, some bidders dropped out, but 4 serious contenders remained locked in battle, each determined to claim ownership of this historic coin. The bidding slowed as it approached $60 million, with longer pauses between bids as the remaining competitors calculated their financial limits and the strategic value of owning such a unique treasure. Finally, at $66 million, 2 of the remaining bidders conceded, leaving just 2 competitors in what became a dramatic head-to-head showdown. The tension in the room was palpable as the auctioneer called for additional bids, and after what seemed like an eternity, but was actually only about 30 seconds, one final bid came in at $67 million. The auctioneer gave the other bidder one last chance to respond, but after a long pause, they shook their head, and the hammer came down at $67 million, setting a new record for the most expensive Roosevelt dime ever sold and one of the highest prices ever paid for any modern United States coin. The identity of the winning bidder has been kept strictly confidential, but sources close to the transaction have indicated that they represent a private collector who specializes in acquiring the finest and rarest error coins available and who viewed this purchase as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own something that would likely never be available again. News of the sale created international headlines, with media outlets around the world running stories about the dime that sold for more than many people's houses, and the publicity generated renewed interest in coin collecting and error coin hunting among people who had never previously considered the hobby. For anyone hoping to find a valuable 2002 error dime, here's exactly what you need to look for. First, examine the color and composition of the coin carefully. A coin struck on a gold planchet will have a distinctively yellow-gold color that is noticeably different from the standard silver-gray appearance of copper-nickel-clad coins, and it will also weigh slightly more than a normal dime. If you have a coin that looks gold-colored, check its weight using a precise scale. A normal dime weighs 2.268 grams, while a dime struck on a gold planchet would weigh approximately 2.7 grams, depending on the exact composition. Second, look for any evidence of multiple striking, which will appear as overlapping or double design elements, partial images that seem out of place, or areas where details appear sharper or more deeply impressed than they should be. Third, examine the coin's surfaces for any unusual lines, cracks, or raised areas that might indicate die breaks or die damage. These will typically appear as linear features that cut across design elements in ways that wouldn't occur on a normal coin. And fourth, check the alignment of the obverse and reverse designs by holding the coin with the obverse upright and then flipping it vertically. If there's a rotated die error, the reverse design will appear tilted or sideways rather than upright. The $67 million sale of the 2002 Roosevelt Dime quadruple error represents not just a record-breaking transaction, but a watershed moment in the history of numismatics that proves definitively that error coins from the modern era can be just as valuable and desirable as classic rarities from the 19th and early 20th centuries. It demonstrates that the combination of extreme rarity, unusual composition, multiple errors, and strong visual appeal can create a perfect storm of collector demand that drives prices to levels that would have been unimaginable just a generation ago. The coin has become a symbol of possibility for collectors at all levels, from beginners who are just starting to examine their pocket change to advanced specialists who have been hunting for rare varieties for decades, because it proves that anyone can make a life-changing discovery if they know what to look for and they have the patience and knowledge to recognize value when they see it. The authentication and grading of this coin set new standards for how PCGS and other grading services evaluate complex error coins, and the extensive documentation and research that went into certifying it has become a reference point for authenticating other unusual errors. The coin's provenance, from its discovery as change in a school cafeteria to its eventual sale for $67 million, has become one of the most famous stories in modern numismatics, inspiring countless articles, videos, and discussions among collectors who are fascinated by how such an extraordinary treasure could remain unrecognized for so long. This $67 million 2002 Roosevelt Dime is the ultimate example of why you should never assume that any coin is just pocket change until you've examined it carefully and confirmed that it doesn't have any valuable errors or varieties. It's proof that fortunes really can hide in the most ordinary-seeming places, waiting for someone with knowledge and attention to detail to discover them. Whether you're a serious collector who has been studying error coins for years or someone who has never thought about coins as anything other than spending money, the lesson is clear. Look at your coins, educate yourself about what makes them valuable, and never assume you know what something is worth without doing your research. So here's my challenge to you. After watching this video and learning about these 4 incredible Roosevelt dimes worth a combined total of $235 million, go check your change. Search through those old jars of coins that have been sitting in your closet or garage. Ask your relatives if they have any old coins they've been saving, and examine everything carefully because you never know what you might find. Look for unusual colors, off-center strikes, doubling, die breaks, rotated dies, wrong planchets, and any other abnormalities that might indicate a valuable error. If you find something that looks unusual, don't clean it, don't try to improve it, and don't sell it until you've had it professionally authenticated and graded, because you could be holding a fortune in your hands. The world of error coins is absolutely fascinating, filled with incredible stories, amazing discoveries, and the very real possibility that your next handful of change could contain the treasure of a lifetime. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found this information valuable and exciting, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel CoinNexa USA for more incredible coin content, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to start checking your coins more carefully from now on. Remember, fortune favors the prepared, and now that you're armed with this knowledge, you are prepared to spot the next great discovery. Happy hunting, and may your coins be rare and valuable.